The night was thick with fog as Sarah stepped off the last train, its whistle echoing into the abyss of darkness. The railway station loomed before her like a relic from a forgotten era, its once vibrant paint peeling away to reveal the raw, grey wood beneath. A flickering bulb hung overhead, casting erratic shadows that twisted and turned like tortured souls on the cracked platform. It felt as though she had stumbled into a place out of time, where the air was thick with dread and despair. As she waited for her friend to pick her up, Sarah noticed the platform was eerily deserted. The wind howled mournfully, but no other sounds filled the air. Pulling out her phone, she cursed under her breath when she saw there was no signal. An unsettling sensation crawled up her spine. Glancing around, she spotted a rusty ticket booth, its glass long shattered. The curiosity tugged at her, pulling her closer despite the chill that seeped into her bones. Inside the booth, a dusty ledger lay open, its pages yellowed and filled with faded ink. She scanned the names, feeling a strange compulsion to read them all, until one caught her eye: Evelyn Thomas. The name sent a chill down her spine. The local legend of Evelyn had circulated for years, a young woman who vanished from the station decades ago, her disappearance remaining an unsolved mystery that haunted the townsfolk. Suddenly, a train whistle blared in the distance, shattering the silence like glass. Sarah turned instinctively, but there was no train in sight. The fog thickened, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. Heart racing, she hurried back to the platform, unease flooding her thoughts. The air felt heavier, almost sentient, as if it was holding its breath. A figure emerged from the fog, a dark silhouette that drew nearer. Sarah squinted, her heart pounding as she strained to make out the shape. As it drew closer, she gasped it was Evelyn, or at least a ghostly reflection of her. Her eyes were hollow, filled with a sorrow that transcended time, yet something darker lurked beneath that melancholy facade. "Help me," Evelyn whispered, her voice a fragile breeze through dead leaves. "I can't leave." Not yet. The anguish in her tone sent a jolt of fear through Sarah, who took an involuntary step back. "Who did this to you?" Sarah stammered, paralyzed by the weight of Evelyn's gaze. "What happened?" Evelyn's form flickered, her features warping momentarily into something twisted and grotesque. "They're coming for you," she warned, her voice rising in urgency. "You must escape before the train arrives." The distant sound of the train grew louder, drowning out Sarah's thoughts. She looked down the tracks, heart racing, caught between terror and an overwhelming desire to uncover the truth. Just as she turned back to Evelyn, the ghost's expression morphed into sheer terror. Before Sarah could react, the ground trembled as a massive, black train emerged from the mist, a spectral engine with rusted cars, screeching to a halt in front of her. The doors creaked open with an eerie groan, revealing an empty interior shrouded in shadows, beckoning her with a sinister allure. Evelyn reached out a hand, desperation etched on her features. "Don't get on the train," Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the clamour. But the ghost only shook her head, a tear rolling down her cheek. "I can't hold them back. You must run." From the depths of the train, dark figures began to emerge, shadowy silhouettes with sunken eyes and twisted, grinning mouths. They glided forward, their movements jerky and unnatural, as if the very shadows themselves were alive. Panic surged within Sarah, and she realized she had to make a choice: confront the darkness or follow Evelyn into the unknown. The figures closed in, their laughter echoing in the night, a cacophony of malice. "Join us," they hissed, their voices a haunting chorus that sent chills racing down her spine. "You'll never leave this station." With a final glance at Evelyn, whose face twisted in anguish, Sarah turned and ran. She sprinted down the platform, heart pounding in her chest, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The train's whistle howled behind her, a siren's call beckoning her back. She could feel the shadows reaching for her, clawing at her heels, their cold fingers grazing her skin. Just as she reached the edge of the platform, a hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun around, ready to confront her pursuers, but it was her friend, Mark, who had finally arrived. "Sarah." "What's wrong?" he shouted, confusion and concern etched on his face. "Get back. We have to leave," she screamed, tearing herself away from him. She pointed at the train, but when Mark looked, it had vanished, swallowed by the thick fog. The figures were gone, leaving only the echoes of their laughter in the stillness, yet Sarah could still feel their presence lurking in the shadows. Mark frowned, concern deepening. "You're scaring me." What did you see? But Sarah couldn't find the words. The images of Evelyn's desperate face and the looming figures haunted her thoughts, drowning her in a sea of dread. As they drove away from the station, the fog began to lift slightly, but an oppressive weight lingered in the air. Sarah felt a sense of dread gnawing at her insides. It wasn't over yet. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed her, something sinister that awaited her in the shadows. That night, sleep evaded her. Shadows danced along the walls of her room, taunting her. Every creak of the house sent shivers down her spine, reminding her of the figures lurking at the station. Just as she began to drift off, a sound jolted her awake, a train whistle, piercing through the stillness. Heart racing, she crept to the window. Outside, the fog had returned, thicker than before, wrapping around her neighborhood like a suffocating blanket. She felt an unshakable urge to go back, to uncover the mystery of Evelyn's fate. The next day, driven by a mix of terror and morbid curiosity, Sarah returned to the railway station. As she stepped onto the platform, the atmosphere shifted, the air growing heavier with each step. The sky loomed grey and ominous, a foreboding sign of the darkness lurking just out of sight. She approached the ticket booth, determined to unearth more about Evelyn. Inside, she discovered an old newspaper clipping wedged between the pages of the ledger. It detailed Evelyn's tragic story, how she had vanished after boarding a train that never arrived. Missing, presumed dead, it read, but Sarah felt there was more to the tale. Suddenly, the air turned icy, and a gust of wind swept through the station, making the papers flutter violently. As Sarah scanned the room, the shadows seemed to deepen, pooling in the corners like a thick, living fog. A chill ran down her spine, and she felt a presence behind her, a whispering breath that sent shivers down her neck. "Help us," the voice beckoned, low and echoing. She spun around, but no one was there. A flicker of movement caught her eye, something darting in the shadows at the edge of her vision. "Join us," the whisper morphed into a cacophony, and Sarah stumbled back against the ticket booth. "Get out," she screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the laughter that echoed in the darkness. The figures began to emerge once more, their faces distorted, grinning maniacally. "You can't escape." They taunted, their laughter growing louder, reverberating in her bones. Panicking, Sarah ran toward the platform, but it felt as if the ground was shifting beneath her. Shadows twisted and stretched, grabbing at her legs like skeletal hands. "You're one of us now," they shrieked, their voices merging into a nightmarish symphony. In a moment of sheer desperation, she recalled the stories of rituals, ancient and forbidden, that could sever ties with the spirits trapped in the station. She had to find a way to confront the darkness, to break the cycle. "Leave me alone," she screamed, channeling all her fear into defiance. The shadows recoiled momentarily, and she seized the opportunity to push forward, racing toward the woods bordering the station. The fog enveloped her, but she fought through, determined to escape the nightmarish hold. As she plunged deeper into the woods, the trees began to close in around her, their gnarled branches twisting like fingers reaching for her. A sudden rustle broke the stillness, and Sarah froze. From the depths of the trees she heard a familiar voice, Evelyn's voice, but it was laced with anguish. "Sarah. Help me." Evelyn, Sarah called, her heart racing. "Where are you?" "Don't listen to them," Evelyn's voice echoed, full of desperation. "They want you to join them. You have to break the curse." As Sarah sprinted deeper into the woods, she felt the shadows closing in, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. "Join us." Forever the figures flickered in and out of view, their eyes glinting with malevolence. "Leave me alone," Sarah screamed again, tears streaming down her face. "I won't let you take me." Just then, she stumbled upon a small clearing illuminated by a flickering light. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, worn by time and overgrown with moss. "It pull," said with an eerie energy, and Sarah felt a strange compulsion to approach it. The whispers grew frantic, pleading for her to turn back. "Sarah, don't," Evelyn's voice rang out, now clearer but tinged with sorrow. You must confront them. Call their names. Taking a deep breath, Sarah steadied herself. I reject you, she shouted into the darkness. You have no hold over me. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of rage that echoed through the woods. The dark figures morphed, their twisted faces contorted in fury. You think you can defy us, they hissed. You belong to us. No, Sarah cried, feeling a surge of power rising within her. I am free. Drawing from the strength of her conviction, she pressed her palms against the cold stone of the altar and began to chant the names she had read in the ledger, voices rising like a chorus in the wind. Evelyn Thomas. Samuel Wright. Clara Blackwood. The names hung in the air, vibrant and charged with energy. The shadows recoiled, their forms writhing as if caught in a storm. No, stop, they howled, but Sarah pressed on, her voice growing stronger. You will not take another soul, you will release them. With each name she spoke, the shadows grew weaker, their laughter dissolving into desperate cries. The altar pulsed beneath her hands, radiating warmth and light. Evelyn's spirit appeared beside her, glowing with a soft luminescence. Thank you, she whispered, a serene smile gracing her lips. You can free us. The darkness writhed, its hold on the clearing loosening as Sarah's voice surged with renewed strength. I call upon the light. I reject the darkness. You have no power here. With a final, anguished scream, the figures dissolved into mist, their cries fading into the night. The air shimmered as the shadows receded, the woods growing still. Breathless, Sarah stumbled back, her heart pounding. She had done it, she had broken the curse that bound them. The altar glowed with a soft light, a promise of peace and closure. Evelyn's spirit lingered for a moment longer, her expression filled with gratitude and relief. Thank you, Sarah, she whispered, before dissolving into the light. As dawn broke, the fog began to lift, revealing the beauty of the woods bathed in golden light. The station stood silent, no longer a haunting ground but a place of remembrance. Sarah emerged from the trees, exhausted but victorious. The train whistle in the distance, once a haunting call, now felt like a gentle reminder of the journey she had endured. But just as she thought she was free, a sudden chill swept over her, and a flicker of darkness crossed her path. She turned, feeling an all-too-familiar sense of dread. Though the immediate threat had dissipated, Sarah sensed that the shadows would never truly be gone. They would linger, waiting for another moment of weakness to seep back into her life. Days turned into weeks, and life began to normalize, yet Sarah was haunted by visions of Evelyn and the lost souls. Night after night, the train whistle would echo in her dreams, pulling her back to the station. Each time, she woke up in a cold sweat, heart racing, wondering if she had truly escaped. One evening, while researching local history in the library, she discovered an article detailing the station's tragic past. It revealed that the train line had been notorious for accidents and disappearances, each linked to a specific date. As she read through the accounts, her blood ran cold. Every one of the incidents fell on the same date each year. The anniversary was approaching, and it filled her with an overwhelming sense of dread. Sarah, you okay? Mark asked one day after she confided in him about her fears. He watched her with concern as she flipped through old newspapers. I don't know if I can shake this feeling, she admitted. I feel like something is coming, like they're not done with me. Mark frowned, looking troubled. Maybe you should let it go. You faced the darkness. You won. But deep down, Sarah knew it wasn't over. She could feel the weight of the souls still trapped in the station, their sorrow echoing through her mind. They needed her, just as Evelyn had. With the anniversary drawing near, she felt a growing urgency to return and confront whatever lay in wait. The night before the anniversary, she found herself wide awake, consumed by anxiety. Shadows danced along the walls of her room, echoing the laughter that had haunted her so many nights before. In that moment, she realized that she would have to face the station once again. Determined, she gathered her courage and returned to the railway station, its dilapidated structure looming like a spectre against the moonlit sky. As she approached, the familiar feeling of dread washed over her. The air was thick with tension, as if the very ground was holding its breath, anticipating her arrival. As she stepped onto the platform, she could see the shadows gathering at the edges, lurking just beyond the flickering light. They whispered her name, their voices a haunting melody that sent chills racing down her spine. "Join us. Forever." "Not tonight," Sarah shouted, her voice ringing through the stillness. She had come too far to let fear dictate her fate. With her heart pounding, she made her way toward the ticket booth, where the ledger still lay open, beckoning her with its ominous presence. "Evelyn," she called, hoping to summon the spirit that had guided her before. "I need your help." The shadows surged forward, their forms twisting and writhing, filling the air with a cacophony of laughter that clawed at her sanity. "You can't escape us. You're ours." "Enough," Sarah screamed, her voice breaking through the noise. She pressed her palms against the ledger, feeling its energy pulse beneath her hands. "I am here to free you. I will not let this darkness consume me." As she focused her thoughts, she recalled the names of those who had been lost. "I call upon Evelyn Thomas, Samuel Wright, Clara Blackwood. You will not take me." The shadows recoiled, their laughter turning into screams of rage. The air crackled with energy as the spirits she had invoked began to materialize around her, their forms shimmering with light. "Sarah." Evelyn's voice rose above the chaos, clear and strong. "You must stand firm. Together, we can break the curse." Sarah felt a surge of warmth and courage. The shadows writhed, their forms twisting in fury as the spirits coalesced around her. "We are not afraid," they shouted, their voices joining hers in a powerful chorus that resonated throughout the station. "Leave this place," Sarah commanded, channeling her energy into the confrontation. "You have no power here." The darkness swirled violently, trying to break free, but the combined strength of the spirits held it at bay. "Join us," the shadows hissed, their voices filled with desperation and fury. "You will be one of us." "No," Sarah cried, feeling the tide of fear begin to recede. "I am not afraid of you. I will not let you take me." As the shadows lunged, she focused on the altar in the clearing, the ancient stone that had pulsed with energy before. Together she urged the spirits. "We can push them back." With a collective effort, they surged forward, their light brightening the darkness. The shadows shrieked, their forms flickering and wavering as they struggled against the light. "No, you cannot do this." They howled, their voices a cacophony of despair. "Yes, we can," Sarah shouted, her heart racing with adrenaline. "We will break this curse." With a final, resounding cry, they charged toward the shadows, overwhelming them with pure light. The figures writhed and twisted, their laughter turning into agonized wails. "You will regret this," they shrieked, but their voices faded as the light engulfed them, dissolving them into mist. As the last remnants of darkness vanished, Sarah felt an immense weight lift from her shoulders. The air was suddenly still, the oppressive atmosphere dissipating like smoke. She stood in the silence, panting, feeling the warmth of the spirits surrounding her. "Thank you," Evelyn's voice whispered, soft and filled with gratitude. "You have freed us." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she realized the truth: the curse had been broken. The shadows had been vanquished, and the souls trapped in the station were finally at peace. The weight of their sorrow had lifted, and she could feel their gratitude washing over her like a warm embrace. In the dawn's light, she stepped away from the station, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, a guardian of the stories that needed to be told. The echoes of the past would always linger, but she had reclaimed her power, ensuring that the lost souls would never be forgotten. As she walked away from the station, Sarah felt a sense of closure, knowing she had honored Evelyn and the others by giving them the peace they deserved. The haunting train whistle faded into the distance, replaced by the chirping of birds and the rustle of leaves, a reminder that life continued, and so did her journey. But even as she moved forward, she kept a piece of the station in her heart, a testament to the darkness she had conquered and the light she had brought forth. The railway station would remain a part of her, a chapter in her life that had taught her the power of courage, compassion, and the enduring strength of hope.